So, with all that being said, you clearly have. I don't know whether it's the path to the NBA Finals. I don't know whether it's the individual matchup, but you clearly like what Boston has potentially if you got to that point.
I think Boston is the hardest. I think Boston has the best ability to force mismatches against you while also minimizing mismatches on their own side because of how mobile they are, because of how well spaced the floor is consistently. They can throw out lineups like Derek White, Marcus Smart, Jayson Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and Al Horford. They can throw out super small lineups where you replace Horford with Grant Williams in that circumstance. You have Malcolm Brogdon as another big body point guard, essentially, that you can throw in that way. This team, I know that depth has been like a thing for them, but if they're at full strength, they're deeper than anybody in terms of the way that they can cause mismatch problems in the playoffs, particularly once benches shorten a little bit. So, yeah, I think Boston should still be the favorite. I do, because they just cause too many problems. And here's the other thing, too. And I'll ask you this. So, with the Suns, my thought was I can come up with reasons why the Suns won't win the title. Health. I think the chemistry is going to be fine. Kevin Durant has played with both Chris Paul and Devin Booker in Olympics before, separate Olympics, but like I think there's going to be some synergy and chemistry there, even just beyond Kevin Durant being like the most unselfish superstar that you'll find just in terms of like touches and everything. I can't really like give you a full ironclad case why Boston can't win the title. I think that like Robert Williams maybe not being on the court makes their defense a little bit worse. This is what I wanted to ask you. What is your case for why Boston can't win the title? Because mine feel very nitpicky in a way that it doesn't feel as nitpicky for Phoenix.
I don't know, man. I mean, you can because the problem is Rob Williams missed the first part of the season and the defense was still great. I mean, you've already pointed to the guys they can go small with. You can play Horford at the 5, and which actually creates more problems for teams that they might face in the postseason. Again, namely Milwaukee. How does that look against Philly? I'm not sure, but Rob Williams plays in that series, and then you've got some pretty handy backup. The guard stuff. Marcus Smart obviously has been huge for this team, but they got Brogdon for not much. Derek White is now an Eastern Conference Player of the Week somehow. I mean, all this shit has just like continued to happen. So I don't really have a reason why they can't win it, other than they run into Milwaukee and Giannis averages 40 and 20. Yeah. Or they play the Phoenix Suns, and we've already spoken about the offensive stuff, and they can be as good as they want defensively, but the Suns might just be better offensively. But they're top 3 in offense and defense. I think they're their deepest team. I think they're the most complete team. I don't know, man. I really don't have a great reason outside of they come up against this superstar going absolutely ballistic.
In minutes that Robert Williams has played this season, they have a 108 defensive rating, which would be best in the league. In minutes where Al Horford and Robert Williams play together, they've only played 214 minutes. Do you know what their defensive rating is in those minutes?
I'm assuming it must be pretty good, like 10. I mean, it's a very small sample size, but 101, 102.
100 on the dot. Mm-hmm. That is absolutely insane. That is like the Celtics are top 3 in defense right now with like a 111 defensive rating. If you put those two together because of how smart they are, because of how rangy they are, and then you throw them with 3 great perimeter defenders like you're going to do with Jayson Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Marcus Smart, Derek White. There's no point where they're not going to have 3 great perimeter defenders out there with that duo. Grant Williams, you can throw out there. Even like Malcolm Brogdon, he's a little bit slow, but he's fucking huge. I mean, like you've seen Malcolm quite a bit. Like, I think people don't really recognize how big Malcolm is, like until you stand next to him almost.
Long arms,
like he's long arms, enormous hands, huge shoulders. Like he can guard up the lineup pretty easily. So I struggle to find answers, I guess. I really, really struggle to find the answers on why the Celtics shouldn't be the favorite. And I think they should be the favorite. You're right. Maybe they run into Kevin Durant and Kevin Durant just goes like super God mode, right? Because sometimes Kevin Durant just does that. Didn't do it against the Celtics last year.
Yeah. Are there other reasons? I mean, we saw that they actually did struggle offensively last year in that series against Milwaukee. I think Milwaukee had a 97 defensive rating. It was a super physical, super slow series. To me, what was the difference? And again, Middleton wasn't there. Why was the reason that Boston won the series? Yeah, Grant Williams hit a bunch of open corner threes in Game 7. But I go back to Game 6 because Jayson Tatum went absolutely ballistic in the fourth quarter in Milwaukee. So they were in serious trouble in that series. So the team is, you look at guys that have made improvements and the guys they've added, Brogdon, of course, they're not unbeatable because I guess the question that the reason why we're saying Kevin Durant can go crazy and Giannis can go crazy is because Jayson Tatum's had a huge season. Is he going to have that type of playoff run where he gets through multiple playoff series against these guys that have already won multiple MVPs? I guess that's a real question as well.
Yeah, like Jayson Tatum is a top 6 player in the league. Yeah. Kevin Durant might be better. Giannis might be better, right?
Yeah.
Like if you have those two guys that you have to run through in the playoffs, and they might not have to run through Kevin Durant now. Like Joel Embiid might be better. That's a very distinct possibility. He might have to run through 3 guys in the playoffs where he's not the best player on the court. He might be the best player on the court though in a couple of those series.
And by the end of it, he definitely could be,
like this is his chance. This is actually like the Jayson Tatum year. People talked about the way that he emerged last season into being that true top 7, top 8 player in the league. This is the one where he can emerge into being like a top 3 player in the league. Undeniably, unquestionably, maybe not undeniably, because people will still argue about this forever and ever because that's what people do. But this is his year. If they win the title on his back and he averages 32 points a game in the playoffs, which distinct possibility, I mean, it's going to be hard to deny him as being like kind of the king of the castle.
Yeah, and I've been pretty strong. And you mentioned last year where he sort of emerged. I mean, I've been pretty strong that everyone's been way too quick with Tatum to say he's like an MVP guy. He's this. They've been trying to do it for years, and I think it's been over the top. And we get why it's Boston, all those types of things. But the other reason why I think people have done that is just because it's pretty rare that guys that young are exposed to the conference finals so young. And because he did it straight away, all of a sudden it feels like we've been waiting for Jayson Tatum to get to that point. And it's like, no. He's actually just done it way before most guys ever get there. Yeah. And was he the best player? And not always the best player on those teams. But the point is he just got that playoff. He's got postseason experience that I don't know what the numbers actually suggest, but he's on a pretty, feels like would be a pretty rare pace for sort of playoff games at the age he's at.
Yeah, I mean, Giannis, Jayson Tatum turns 25, I think, like in 2 or 3 days, right?
Right.
Giannis finally got to the, I think, conference finals. He was either 24 or 25 for the first time, if I remember correctly, right? That was in 2019. You'll know that better than I do.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the fact that Jayson Tatum's played in a bunch of those series already, sometimes is the best player in the series, sometimes is not the best player in that series. It's critical. It's been critical to his development, I think, as much as anything, but it's also been critical to why people are willing to anoint him as quickly as they have been. I think Giannis is a better player than Jayson Tatum right now. I do, if I'm being completely honest. There's no more dominant force than Giannis. But in this playoff series, we'll see. I mean, does Giannis have to take on the Jayson Tatum assignment for the Milwaukee Bucks?
And this is why it's been fascinating in years gone by. And not having Middleton last year did hurt a little bit, again, because there was just mismatches all over. And Middleton is not an elite defender at this point anymore. There was a stage where he was, but I've been saying for a few years, I do think his playoff defense goes up significantly. I mean, he's been a guy that has guard Kevin Durant. He also will chase around, guards in the perimeter. So I think his defense goes to a different level. So Middleton will get a crack. Obviously, Drew Holiday gets a crack.